I'm Claire Thompson, 29, a medical researcher from Austin, Texas. My days are spent analyzing compounds in a lab, searching for answers in microscopic details. I never imagined those skills would unravel a crime in my own family, a betrayal so dark it still chills me. 5 months ago, I walked into a Houston restaurant, expecting a night of celebration. Instead, I uncovered a secret that shattered everything I thought I knew about trust. In Texas, we're raised to protect our own, but what happens when the danger comes from within? My instincts, honed by science and grit, saved us. Vincent's in Houston is the kind of place where Texas luxury shines. Longhorn decor, sizzling steaks, the hum of celebration. We were there for my brother Nathan's 5th wedding anniversary, a milestone for him and Abigail, his high school sweetheart. Our family, scarred by Mom's death 6 years ago, clung to moments like these. Nathan, 32, always my protector, deserved this joy. But our stepmother, Margaret, had orchestrated every detail, her smile too perfect, her control too tight. She insisted I drink a Merlot, ignoring my migraines from red wine. Something felt off. Her eyes lingered on my glass, her voice sharp with insistence. I brushed it aside, not wanting to ruin Nathan's night. Then a server, Olivia, caught my eye, her stare heavy with warning. In the restroom, she whispered words that froze my blood. Margaret had slipped something into my drink. In Austin, we trust our gut, and mine screamed danger. Olivia's secret wasn't just a warning. It was a spark that ignited the truth. Margaret wasn't who she seemed, and that night, under Houston's glittering lights, our family celebration turned into a battle for survival, one I'd fight with every ounce of my Texas resolve. That one night at Vincent's changed my family forever. What started as a celebration of love became a nightmare of betrayal, exposing a predator in our midst. Margaret's calculated moves nearly tore us apart, but trusting my instincts and a stranger's courage saved us. In Texas, we don't just survive, we fight for what's ours. This story isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming trust, rebuilding family, and learning to listen when your gut whispers something's wrong. Stick with me to hear how we uncovered the truth and came out stronger together under the wide Texas sky. I'm Claire Thompson, 29. A medical researcher born and raised in Austin, Texas. My life revolves around a lab, studying toxins to save lives, but nothing prepared me for the poison that crept into my family. Growing up, our home was a haven, anchored by my mother, Evelyn, who died at 52. She was a kindergarten teacher, her laughter filling our Austin house like a warm breeze. My brother Nathan, 32, was my protector, teaching me to ride a bike on our quiet street, always there to mend my broken teenage heart. His wife, Abigail, 31, brought light to our family with her gentle kindness, becoming the sister I never had. Our father, Robert, 58, was the rock, running his engineering firm with pride. But when Mom's cancer diagnosis came, it shattered us. 8 months later, she was gone, her absence a wound that never healed. Dad buried himself in work, his grief a silent wall between us. Nathan and I leaned on each other, trying to keep her memory alive in small ways, like wearing her favorite Navy dress to family events. In Texas, family is everything, but loss can fracture even the strongest bonds. Enter Margaret, 49, my father's new wife, who seemed like a gift at first, promising to mend our broken pieces. But her arrival marked the start of something darker, a shadow we didn't see coming. This is the story of how we almost lost everything, and how revenge, born from betrayal, brought us back together. 3 years after Mom's death, Dad met Margaret at a cancer research fundraiser in Houston. She was polished, attentive, a widow who claimed to understand his grief. At 49, she had a charm that felt like a bomb, pulling Dad out of his isolation. Their romance moved fast. Too fast. Within 6 months, they married in a small ceremony. Her red dress a bold contrast to our muted grief. "She makes me happy," Dad told us, brushing off our concerns about the rushed timeline. At first, Margaret seemed perfect, encouraging Dad to reconnect with friends, even helping plan Nathan's anniversary parties. But cracks appeared. She convinced Dad to sell his vintage Ford Mustang, a car he'd restored with Mom, claiming it was impractical. Sunday golf games in Round Rock, a ritual he'd loved for decades, stopped abruptly. "Margaret knows what's best," he'd say, his voice softer, less certain. She steered his decisions, subtly at first, then overtly, making him question himself. In Austin, we value independence, but Dad was slipping away, molded by her will. Her smile, practiced and cold, never reached her eyes when she spoke of family. I watched her orchestrate our lives like a chessboard, placing herself at the center. Nathan and I whispered our doubts, but Dad's trust in her was unshakable. Little did we know, her control was the first step in a calculated plan, one that would lead to a night of betrayal and a fight for our family's survival. Mom's spirit lived in our Austin backyard, where her Texas barbecues were the heartbeat of our family. Every summer, neighbors gathered for her legendary brisket, slow-smoked over mesquite, the air thick with laughter and country music. She'd dance off-key to Willie Nelson, her apron stained with sauce, making us feel whole. Even after her diagnosis, she'd host smaller gatherings, her strength a quiet defiance. Those memories held us together when she was gone. But Margaret shut them down. She called our barbecues messy and unnecessary, insisting on quiet, sterile dinners instead. The annual Austin chili cook-off, a tradition Mom adored, was another casualty. She'd drag us to Zilker Park, cheering for spicy recipes, her enthusiasm infectious. Margaret refused to go, dismissing it as tacky. "We're above that now," she'd say, her voice dripping with disdain. Dad, once a chili judge, stayed home, his spark dimming. In Texas, traditions like these are sacred, tying us to our roots, but Margaret severed them, isolating Dad from the life he loved. Her rejection wasn't just about events. It was about erasing Mom's legacy, replacing it with her own calculated order. I felt her grip tightening, not just on Dad, but on our family's soul. Looking back, those small acts were warnings, red flags waving in the Texas wind. They whispered that something was wrong, but I wasn't ready to listen. Not yet. That night at Vincent's would force me to hear the truth, a truth that would spark a reckoning and a fight to reclaim what was ours. Margaret's control grew like a shadow over our family, subtle but suffocating. She'd interrupt Dad's stories, finishing his sentences with a tight smile, making him second-guess himself. "I just want what's best for us," she'd say, her voice smooth as a snake's hiss. She decided what we ate, where we went, even how Dad spent his money. Her influence was a slow poison, unnoticed by most, but I saw it. In my lab, I study patterns, and hers were clear. Isolate, manipulate, dominate. I tried talking to Dad, my voice low over coffee in our Austin kitchen. "She's changing you, Dad. It's not right." He'd wave me off, his eyes tired. "Claire, you're imagining things. Margaret's good for me." His denial stung, but I doubted myself too. Was I paranoid, clinging to Mom's memory? Nathan felt it too, but we were kids in Dad's eyes, our concerns brushed aside. Margaret's smile haunted me, never reaching her eyes, especially when she spoke to me. "You work too hard, Claire," she'd say, her tone laced with something I couldn't name. In Texas, we trust family, but my gut churned with doubt. I kept quiet, not wanting to fracture our fragile peace. But that unease, that quiet whisper in my soul, was building. It would explode at Vincent's, where a stranger's warning would turn my suspicions into a fight for our lives. A fight for revenge against the woman who tried to steal everything we held dear. I excused myself from the table at Vincent's, needing a moment to escape the tension that hung like a Texas summer storm. Margaret's insistence on that Merlot, her eyes tracking my every move, had set my nerves on edge. In the elegant restroom, with its marble counters and soft lighting, I splashed cool water on my wrists, a trick Mom taught me to calm my racing heart. The door creaked open, and I saw her in the mirror. Olivia, the server who'd been watching our table all night. Her dark hair was pulled back, her name tag glinting under the lights, but her eyes held something urgent, almost desperate. She glanced under the stalls, ensuring we were alone, then stepped closer, her voice low and steady. "I'm sorry to intrude, Claire, but I saw something you need to know. Your stepmother put a powder in your wine." The words hit like a punch, stealing my breath. I stared at her, disbelief warring with the unease I'd felt all evening. "What? Why would she do that?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper. Olivia's gaze didn't waver. "I worked as a pharmacy technician in San Antonio for 5 years. I've seen people tamper with drinks, subtle, calculated moves like hers. When everyone was distracted by the dessert menus, she slipped something into your glass. I was clearing plates nearby, and I saw it clear as day." Her words were precise, like a scientist presenting evidence, but there was pain behind them. She told me about her aunt, slowly poisoned by her husband, a betrayal that left scars. "I swore I'd never ignore the signs again," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "In Texas, we're taught to trust our instincts, but this was beyond anything I'd imagined." Margaret, with her polished smile and calculated kindness, a poisoner. My mind raced, trying to reconcile the woman who'd married my father with this chilling accusation. Olivia's certainty grounded me, her experience lending weight to her warning. "Why risk telling me?" I asked, knowing she could lose her job. "Because no one deserves to be betrayed like that," she replied. "Not you, not your family." Her courage stirred something in me, a resolve to uncover the truth. This wasn't just about me. It was about protecting Dad, Nathan, and Abigail from a woman who'd woven herself into our lives like a snake in the grass. I took a deep breath, the weight of her words settling in. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice steadier now, ready to fight back. Olivia's warning was a spark that ignited memories I'd buried, moments that seemed innocent at the time but now glowed with sinister meaning. My father, Robert, had always been strong, a man who built bridges, literally and figuratively, at his Austin engineering firm. But a year ago, after a heated argument with Margaret about selling his vacation cabin in hill country, he fell ill. A 3-day stomach bug, the doctors called it, but it left him weak, his eyes duller than before. I chalked it up to stress, but now I wondered. Margaret had been there, hovering, serving him tea she'd brewed herself, her concern too perfect, too practiced. Then there was our family dog, Rusty, a loyal retriever who'd bounded through our Austin backyard since I was a teenager. 6 months ago he died suddenly, the vet baffled, muttering about unknown toxins. Margaret had been the one to find him, her tears quick and convincing. I'd grieved, never suspecting her hand in it. And then there was me. Just 3 months before that night at Vincent's, I'd felt dizzy and sick after a dinner at their Houston condo. Margaret had insisted on pouring me a special herbal tea, her eyes watching as I sipped. I'd blamed my long lab hours, but now the pieces fit together like a toxic puzzle. In my research, I study how poisons work, how they can mimic natural ailments, slipping past notice until it's too late. Margaret's actions weren't random. They were calculated, a pattern of harm woven through our family. I thought of Dad's increasing fatigue, his confusion at times, symptoms I'd attributed to aging but now saw as something darker. In Texas, we protect our own, but I'd failed to see the threat right in front of me. Olivia's words forced me to face the truth. Margaret wasn't just controlling. She was dangerous, a predator who'd targeted us for reasons I couldn't yet grasp. My heart pounded as I stood in that restroom, the weight of betrayal sinking in. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for Dad, for Nathan, for the family Mom had held together. Margaret had underestimated me, thinking her charm could outshine my instincts. But in that moment, I knew I'd do whatever it took to expose her, to turn her own plan against her. This was no longer just a family dinner. It was a battle, and I was ready to strike back. In my Austin lab, I spend hours studying toxins, how they disrupt the body, how they hide in plain sight. Mercury, arsenic, even prescription drugs can be weapons in the wrong hands, mimicking heart attacks or organ failure. As Olivia spoke, my scientific mind kicked into gear, connecting her warning to my research. I'd read case studies of slow poisoning, where victims grew weaker over months, their symptoms dismissed as stress or age. Dad's fatigue, his digestive issues, even Rusty's death, they aligned with heavy metal poisoning, subtle but deadly. Margaret's insistence on that Merlot wasn't random. It was a delivery method, a way to slip something into my system without suspicion. My research had taught me to spot patterns, and hers were glaring now. Isolate, manipulate, harm. In Texas, we say trust your gut, but my training gave me more evidence. I'd analyzed compounds that could cause confusion, dizziness, the exact symptoms I'd felt after her tea. Margaret had played the caring stepmother, but her actions screamed intent. I thought of her questions about Grandpa's trust, her frustration when I, as co-trustee, asked for transparency. Was this about money, control, or something worse? My lab work taught me to question what seems too perfect. And Margaret's facade was crumbling. Olivia's warning wasn't just a hunch. It was a lifeline, pulling me from doubt to certainty. I stood in that restroom, my hands steady despite my racing heart, knowing I had the knowledge to fight back. Margaret thought she could outsmart us, but she didn't know the strength of a Texas woman armed with science and resolve. This was my chance to protect my family, to turn her betrayal into her downfall. And I wasn't going to let it slip away. Olivia's eyes met mine, her resolve as firm as the Texas oak. "We need proof," she said, her voice low but certain. "Swap your wine glass with hers. If she drinks it, we'll know." The plan was simple but bold, a move straight out of a Texas showdown. If Margaret had tampered with my drink, her own actions would expose her. My hands, trained from years in the lab, could handle the precision, but my heart raced at the risk. What if she notices? I asked, my voice steady despite the fear. "She's too focused on you drinking," Olivia replied. "She'll be smug, thinking she's won." Her plan relied on a distraction. She'd fumble a champagne bottle near our table, drawing everyone's eyes. In that moment, I'd switch my tainted Merlot with Margaret's glass, letting her taste her own medicine. In Austin, we don't back down from a fight, and this was one I couldn't lose. Olivia's courage fueled mine. She was risking her job, maybe more, to help a stranger. "My aunt suffered because no one acted," she said. "I won't let that happen again." We finalized the plan, our voices hushed in the restroom's quiet. I'd return to the table, play along, and wait for her signal. The stakes were high. Margaret was cunning, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. But I was ready, driven by a need to protect my family and expose the truth. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice, about reclaiming our safety from a woman who'd preyed on our trust. As we left the restroom, I felt the weight of what was coming. Margaret had set a trap, but I was about to turn it on her, and the truth would hit harder than any Texas storm. My heart pounded as I returned to the table at Vincent's, the weight of Olivia's warning heavy in my chest. Margaret's eyes flicked toward me, her smile sharp, expecting me to drink the Merlot she'd tampered with. I sat, my hands steady from years of delicate lab work, but inside, I was a storm of fear and resolve. Olivia and I had a plan. A bold, Texas-sized gamble to turn Margaret's scheme against her. The restaurant hummed with laughter and clinking glasses, but for me, it was a battlefield. I forced a smile, nodding at Nathan's toast to his and Abigail's 5 years of marriage, my mind racing. Olivia moved toward our table, her tray balanced with a champagne bottle. her eyes meeting mine for a fleeting second. This was it. My pulse roared in my ears as she approached, her movements deliberate but natural. Then, with a subtle tilt, the bottle wobbled, slipping from her grasp. It didn't fall, just teetered enough to draw every eye. Uncle David gasped, Aunt Linda reached out, and Margaret's head turned, her attention snagged. In that split second, my hands moved like they did in the lab, precise and swift. I slid my tainted Merlot toward Margaret's place and pulled her champagne flute to mine. The glasses swapped in a heartbeat, seamless, unnoticed. My fingers trembled as I settled back, the adrenaline burning through me. Olivia steadied the bottle, apologizing with a practiced laugh, and the table relaxed, chatter resuming. Margaret turned back, her gaze locking on my glass, now her champagne, her smile smug, thinking her plan was in motion. She had no idea she was about to drink her own poison. In Texas, we don't just play defense. We strike back when our family's at stake. My years of analyzing toxins had taught me precision, but this moment tested my courage. I'd crossed a line, but there was no turning back. Margaret's betrayal had pushed me here, and I was ready to let her face the consequences of her own design. The switch was done, and now the truth would unravel, exposing the predator who'd slithered into our lives. This wasn't just about saving myself, it was about protecting Dad, Nathan, Abigail, and the family Mom had built. The Texas sky might be wide, but there was no room for Margaret's lies anymore. The table buzzed with warmth as Nathan raised his glass, toasting Abigail's unwavering love. I gripped my flute, Margaret's champagne, pretending to sip, my eyes fixed on her. Margaret, oblivious to the switch, lifted my Merlot, her fingers curling around the stem with confidence. Her red dress glowed under Vincent's chandeliers, a stark contrast to the darkness of her intent. She brought the glass to her lips, her eyes darting to me, expecting me to mirror her. I raised my flute, tilting it just enough to look convincing, but not a drop touched my tongue. My heart thundered, each beat a countdown to the truth. Margaret sipped the wine, a slow, deliberate motion, her smile curling like she'd won some secret game. She thought I was drinking her poison, unaware she'd just consumed it herself. In Texas, we say pride comes before a fall, and Margaret's pride was blinding. I watched her swallow, the moment stretching into eternity. My mind flashed to Olivia's warning, her certainty that Margaret had tampered with my drink. What was in that glass? Something to confuse me, to silence me, to clear her path to Dad's wealth. My lab training raced through possibilities, sedatives, toxins, compounds that could mimic a bad night out. But this wasn't a lab. This was real, and the stakes were my family's survival. Margaret set the glass down, her movements smooth, her face betraying nothing. She leaned toward Dad, whispering something, her hand brushing his arm. He smiled, unaware of the danger beside him. Guilt flickered in me. Had I gone too far? But her smug glance at me, her assumption of victory, snuffed it out. She'd planned to harm me, maybe worse, and I'd turned her weapon against her. The restaurant's chatter faded as I focused on her, waiting for the first sign. Nathan laughed at a joke, Abigail's hand on his, their joy a reminder of what I was fighting for. In Austin, family is sacred, and Margaret had desecrated ours. I thought of Mom, her strength, her love that still guided me. This wasn't just revenge. It was justice, a stand against a woman who'd preyed on our grief. Margaret sipped again, her eyes gleaming with triumph, unaware that each drop was unraveling her facade. The trap was sprung, and soon, the truth would hit harder than a Texas twister. 20 minutes passed, each one heavy with anticipation. Margaret's laughter grew louder, her gestures looser, but I saw it first in her eyes. A flicker of confusion, like a shadow crossing the Texas plains. She reached for her glass, misjudging the distance, her fingers brushing the stem clumsily. Her words, sharp and controlled all night, began to slur, blending into a soft, incoherent murmur. "Robert, darling," she said, her voice trailing off as she swayed in her chair. Dad frowned, his hand steadying her. "Margaret, you okay?" he asked, concern etching his face. She blinked, trying to smile, but her head dipped forward, her body betraying her. The table fell silent, forks pausing mid-air. Uncle David stood, his chair scraping. "Something's wrong," he said, voice tight. Margaret gripped the tablecloth, her knuckles white, her face paling under the restaurant's warm lights. She tried to speak, but only a garbled sound escaped. My heart raced, a mix of dread and vindication. The poison she'd meant for me was taking hold. Dad shouted for help, his voice cracking, and Vincent's staff rushed over. Within minutes, paramedics burst through the doors, their radios crackling, their movements swift. They checked her pulse, noting her low blood pressure and constricted pupils, their faces grim. "Possible overdose," one said, and I knew. Margaret had reaped what she'd sown. As they lifted her onto a stretcher, her eyes met mine, wild and unfocused, but for a moment I saw fear. The predator had become prey, her plan collapsing under the weight of her own malice. In Texas, we don't gloat over justice, but I felt a quiet resolve. This was the beginning of her end, and our family's chance to heal. As Margaret was wheeled away, the restaurant's hum faded into a dull roar in my ears. Guilt clawed at me, sharp and unexpected. Had I gone too far? I'd swapped the glasses to expose her, to protect us, but watching her collapse, her body betraying her, shook me. Was I any better, turning her weapon against her? But then I saw her eyes, that fleeting glare before the paramedics took her. Cold, calculating, even in her haze. It reminded me why I'd acted. She'd meant to harm me, to silence me, maybe to destroy us all for her gain. In Texas, we don't let snakes slither through our homes unchecked. I turned to Nathan, my voice low, trembling as I confessed. "I switched the glasses, Nathan. She tried to poison me." His face hardened, his jaw tight, his fist clenching on the table. "No one messes with my sister," he said, his voice low, a Texas drawl thick with fury. "Not here, not ever." His protectiveness wrapped around me like a shield, grounding me. Nathan, who'd taught me to stand tall, was ready to fight beside me. Abigail reached for his hand, her eyes wide but fierce, nodding in silent support. My guilt didn't vanish, but it softened, replaced by a fire to see this through. Margaret had underestimated us, thinking she could fracture our family and walk away. But in Austin, family is forged in trials, and this one would make us stronger. I thought of Mom, her courage, her love for us. She'd have fought too for Dad, for us. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming our family from a woman who'd preyed on our trust. Nathan's hand gripped my shoulder, a promise we'd face whatever came next together, and I knew we'd expose Margaret's truth, no matter the cost. The chaos at Vincent's lingered in my mind as the police took over, their presence a stark contrast to the restaurant's glittering warmth. Detective Amanda Cameron, a no-nonsense Texan with 20 years on the force, led the investigation with a steady hand. She called me aside, her voice calm but firm, and asked me to recount Olivia's warning and the glass swap. My heart pounded as I explained, my lab-trained precision guiding my words. I wasn't just Claire Thompson, the medical researcher. I was a witness to a crime, and Margaret's betrayal was about to unravel. The police secured the private dining room, cordoning off our table like a crime scene. They reviewed Vincent's security footage, and what they found was chilling. During a moment when Nathan's toast had everyone's eyes on him, Margaret's hand moved swiftly, slipping a powdery substance into my Merlot. Her motions were practiced, almost invisible, but the camera caught it all. Detective Cameron showed me the grainy clip, and my stomach twisted. There she was, my stepmother, her face a mask of composure as she tried to poison me. The police searched her purse, tucked beneath her chair, and found more of the substance in small, clear vials. Later tests confirmed it was a dangerous sedative, enough to knock someone out, or worse. In Texas, we value trust, but Margaret had shattered ours with a calculated act. I thought of Dad sitting in the hospital waiting room, his face ashen, unaware of the depth of her deceit. The evidence was undeniable, a hard truth that cut deeper than any knife. My swap had exposed her, but the reality of her intent left me reeling. Had she planned to silence me permanently? Was this her first move, or part of a larger scheme? As a scientist, I'd studied toxins, but this was a poison of the heart, one that preyed on family bonds. The police questioned Olivia, whose pharmacy technician background gave weight to her observations. Her courage, her willingness to speak up, had set this in motion. In Austin, we stand by those who stand by us, and I owed her more than I could say. The footage and vials were just the beginning, pieces of a puzzle that would reveal Margaret's true nature. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about uncovering a predator who'd targeted us, and I was determined to see it through, for my family, for justice, under the wide Texas sky. The investigation deepened, peeling back Margaret's facade like layers of paint on an old Texas barn. Detective Cameron sat us down, me, Nathan, and Dad, in a stark Houston precinct room, her eyes heavy with what she'd uncovered. Margaret wasn't just our stepmother. She was Margaret Ellen Dawson, a name tied to a trail of deceit across Texas. At 49, she'd built a life on lies, targeting wealthy men in Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. Her real identity hit us like a norther blowing through the plains, cold and relentless. Records showed she'd been married 3 times before Dad, each husband a prosperous widower who'd met her at charity events or social clubs. She'd charmed them, married quickly, and left with their money, or worse. 2 of her ex-husbands had died under suspicious circumstances. Their deaths ruled natural at the time, but now under scrutiny. Margaret was a serial manipulator, a chameleon who slipped into lives, reshaped them, and vanished with the spoils. In Texas, we pride ourselves on seeing through facades, but she'd fooled us all. Her Houston condo, where she'd lived with Dad, held forged documents, fake IDs, altered wills, even a marriage certificate predating their wedding. She'd planned to erase us to claim Dad's wealth, including Grandpa's trust, which I co-managed. My role as trustee had made me a threat, a detail I hadn't realized until now. Nathan's fists clenched as Cameron spoke, his anger a quiet fire. Dad sat silent, his face crumpled, the man who'd built bridges now broken by betrayal. I thought of Margaret's smile, her calculated kindness, and felt sick. She'd played us like pawns, her every move deliberate. My lab work taught me to spot patterns, and hers were clear now. Charm, control, destroy. The police suspected she'd targeted Dad from the moment she saw him at that fundraiser, a grieving widower with assets to plunder. In Austin, we don't let predators roam free, and this one had been caught. But the truth of her identity wasn't just a legal victory. It was a personal wound. She'd infiltrated our family, exploiting Mom's absence, and nearly torn us apart. This wasn't just about exposing her. It was about reclaiming our trust, our strength. Margaret Ellen Dawson thought she could outsmart a Texas family, but she'd underestimated our resolve. The investigation was closing in, and her past was catching up, ready to deliver the justice she'd evaded for too long. The evidence against Margaret piled up, each piece a hammer striking at her lies. Detective Cameron laid out the financial trail first. Margaret had siphoned $80,000 from Dad's accounts over 2 years. She'd opened hidden bank accounts, forged his signature on checks, and funneled money through shell companies in Dallas. Dad's engineering firm, his life's work, had been her target, a slow bleed he hadn't noticed in his grief. In Texas, we work hard for what's ours, and to see his legacy stolen was a gut punch. But the money was only part of it. The police found traces of heavy metals, arsenic and mercury, in Dad's system, confirmed by blood tests after Margaret's collapse. My lab training kicked in as Cameron explained. These toxins, administered in small doses, mimicked natural decline, causing fatigue, confusion, and organ damage. Dad's stomach bugs, his increasing weakness, weren't age or stress. They were Margaret's doing. She'd been poisoning him, likely through the teas and meals she prepared. Her care a mask for malice. I remembered those moments, her hovering over him, insisting he drink her special blends. My own sickness after her tea, Rusty's sudden death, both likely tied to her toxins. As a medical researcher, I'd studied compounds like these, knowing their stealthy power, but seeing them used against my father was a nightmare. Margaret's plan was clear. Weaken Dad, isolate him, and claim his wealth when he passed naturally. The trust, which I oversaw, stood in her way, and I'd been her next target. The $80,000 was a start, but she'd aimed for millions, including our family's ranch in Hill Country. Nathan's voice broke as he asked, "How could we miss this?" Dad stared at the table, his hands trembling, the betrayal cutting deeper than any physical wound. In Austin, family is sacred, and Margaret had desecrated ours. The police suspected she'd used similar tactics on her previous husbands, their deaths now being re-examined. Each revelation fueled my resolve, not just for revenge but for justice. Margaret had preyed on our trust, exploiting Dad's grief for Mom, and nearly destroyed us. My swap at Vincent's had stopped her, but this evidence sealed her fate. The truth was a bitter pill, but it gave us power. We'd fight back, not with poison, but with the strength of a Texas family determined to protect its own, to rebuild what she tried to steal. Days after Margaret's collapse, I found myself at the Austin police station, a place as familiar as it was foreign. Its gray walls and buzzing fluorescence felt worlds away from my lab, but the truth unfolding here was as precise as any experiment. Detective Cameron called me in, her eyes kind but focused, to review new evidence from Margaret's Houston condo. I sat in a small room, my hands clasped to hide their tremble, as she described what they'd found. Behind a framed photo of the Alamo, a strange choice for a woman who'd scorned Texas traditions, was a hidden safe. Inside were stacks of forged documents, fake IDs with different names, altered bank records, even a will naming Margaret as Dad's sole heir. My breath caught as I realized how far her plan extended. She'd meant to erase us, to claim everything Grandpa's trust protected, down to our family's ranch. The Alamo, a symbol of Texas defiance, mocked her deceit, hiding her secrets in plain sight. Cameron showed me Margaret's mugshot, her polished facade gone, replaced by a hard, defiant glare. "This isn't her first rodeo," Cameron said, her Texas drawl grounding the moment. Margaret Ellen Dawson had left a trail of victims, and Austin was just her latest stop. I thought of Mom, her love for Texas history, her trips with us to San Antonio's missions. Margaret's choice of the Alamo photo felt like a final insult, a desecration of our roots. As a scientist, I analyzed patterns, and hers were undeniable. Target, manipulate, destroy. The safe's contents proved she'd planned to flee once Dad was gone, her tracks covered by lies. Standing in that station, I felt a mix of rage and relief. Rage at how close she'd come to succeeding, relief that Olivia's warning had stopped her. In Texas, we don't let outsiders tear down what's ours, and Margaret had underestimated our resolve. The police were building a case, linking her to past crimes, but for me, this was personal. The safe secrets were her undoing, a testament to her greed. I left the station with a fire in my chest, not just for revenge, but for justice, for Dad, for the family we'd nearly lost. Margaret thought she could outsmart us, but the truth, like a Texas sunrise, was breaking through, ready to burn away her lies. Margaret's hospital room was sterile, its beeping monitors a harsh reminder of her collapse at Vincent's. She'd survived her own poison, but her mask was gone, stripped by the evidence piling against her. Detective Cameron arranged for me and Nathan to hear her statement, a moment I both dreaded and needed. Dad stayed behind, too broken to face her, his trust shattered. Margaret sat propped in bed, her red hair dull, her face pale but defiant. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw the predator beneath, cold, unrepentant. She spoke in a low, steady voice, each word a blade. "I did what I had to," she said, admitting she'd slipped a sedative into my Merlot. Her plan was to disorient me, to make me seem unstable, to weaken my grip on Grandpa's trust. As co-trustee, I'd questioned her financial moves, my lab-honed skepticism a threat to her scheme. "You were too nosy, Claire," she sneered, her Texas accent, likely fake, fading. She'd targeted me to clear her path to Dad's wealth, believing a single dose would discredit me. But her confession went deeper. She admitted to poisoning Dad, small doses of heavy metals to mimic decline, ensuring she'd inherit everything. Her previous husbands had fallen to similar tactics, she hinted, though she stopped short of confessing murder. Nathan's fists clenched, his anger a quiet storm, while I stood frozen, her words confirming my worst fears. In Texas, we protect our own, but Margaret had exploited our love, our grief for Mom, to worm her way in. Her glare held no remorse, only frustration at being caught. My swap had turned her plan against her, a poetic justice that stung her pride. As a scientist, I knew toxins could hide, but her malice was blatant now, exposed by her own lips. The confession was a victory, but it cut deep. Dad's love, our family's trust, had been her weapons. I thought of Mom, her strength, and felt a resolve to rebuild what Margaret had broken. This wasn't just revenge. It was redemption, a fight to honor our family's legacy. Margaret's words sealed her fate, but they also freed us, giving us the truth to heal. In Austin, we don't just survive betrayal. We rise stronger, ready to face the dawn. The days after Margaret's confession were a fog of pain for my father, Robert. At 58, he'd built a life of strength, running his engineering firm in Austin with a steady hand, but her betrayal broke something deep inside him. The man who'd once taught me to fish in Lake Travis sat silent, his eyes hollow, grappling with the truth that the woman he'd loved had poisoned him, stolen from him, and nearly destroyed us all. In Texas, we don't talk much about feelings, but Dad needed help, and he found it in therapy. Dr. Jessica Taylor, a Houston psychologist with a warm but firm approach, guided him through the wreckage. Their sessions, held in a quiet office overlooking the city, became a lifeline. Dad learned to name his grief, not just for Margaret's deceit, but for Mom's death, which had left him vulnerable to a predator. He joined a support group for fraud victims, a circle of strangers who understood the shame and anger he carried. Slowly, he began to speak, sharing stories of Mom's laughter, his pride in Nathan and me, and his guilt for trusting Margaret. The group gave him strength, a reminder that even in Texas, where we're taught to stand tall, it's okay to lean on others. By spring, Dad returned to his firm, stepping back into the office where blueprints and coffee fueled his days. He started small, reviewing projects, mentoring young engineers, but each step rebuilt his purpose. I'd visit him there, seeing glimpses of the man who'd carried me on his shoulders at Austin's Kite Festival. He'd smile, a little dimmer but real, and talk about new bridges he wanted to design. In Texas, we rebuild what's broken, and Dad was doing just that. Margaret had tried to tear him down, but his resilience, forged in therapy and community, was stronger than her lies. My heart ached for what he'd endured, but it swelled with pride as he reclaimed his life. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about healing, about showing Margaret that our family's love could outlast her poison. Dad's recovery was a quiet victory, a testament to the Texas spirit that refuses to stay down, no matter how hard the fall. Margaret's betrayal left scars, but it also lit a fire in me. As a medical researcher, I'd spent years studying toxins, but her poison, deceit, manipulation, taught me how deeply betrayal can wound a family. I couldn't undo the past, but I could help others avoid it. In Austin, where community runs deep, I started a support network for families suspecting abuse or fraud. It began small, just a few of us meeting in a community center near Zilker Park, sharing stories of gut feelings ignored, of loved ones exploited. I spoke about Margaret, how her charm had blinded us, how Olivia's courage had saved us. My training helped me guide others, teaching them to spot red flags: financial control, isolation, unexplained illnesses. The group grew, drawing people from across Texas, each story a thread in a tapestry of resilience. Helping them felt like honoring Mom, whose kindness had always lifted others. I'd sit with survivors, listening as they reclaimed their voices, and feel her presence in the room. Meanwhile, Nathan and Abigail gave our family a beacon of hope. One evening, over dinner at our Austin home, they shared their news. They were expecting twins. Abigail's smile lit up the room, her hand resting on her belly, while Nathan grinned, already planning how he'd teach his kids to throw a football. The twins, due in winter, were a promise of new life, a reminder that love could grow even in the shadow of betrayal. We toasted with sweet tea, laughing about baby names. Maybe Evelyn for Mom or Travis for Texas pride. In my lab, I analyzed patterns, and this one was clear. Our family was healing, not just surviving but thriving. Margaret had aimed to fracture us, but her actions had forged us closer. My advocacy work gave me purpose, a way to turn pain into power, while the twins symbolized our future. In Texas, we don't let darkness win. We build light from it. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about redemption, about proving that a Texas family could rise above a predator's schemes, stronger and more united than ever. The support network and the twins were our defiance, our way of saying Margaret's poison couldn't touch our soul. Healing came to our family like a slow Texas sunrise, warm and steady. One summer evening, we gathered in our Austin backyard, the air thick with mesquite smoke and memories. Dad stood at the grill, flipping ribs with a focus I hadn't seen in years. His apron splattered with sauce like Mom's used to be. Nathan and Abigail set the table, their laughter mingling with the sizzle of meat. I brought out Mom's favorite potato salad recipe, the one she'd perfected for our barbecues. These gatherings had stopped after her death, silenced by grief and Margaret's disdain, but now we were reclaiming them. The scent of barbecue, the strum of Willie Nelson from a speaker, brought Mom back to us, her spirit alive in every bite. We ate under string lights, sharing stories of her. How she'd dance barefoot, how she'd sneak extra brisket to Rusty. Dad's eyes sparkled as he spoke, his voice stronger, his wounds softening. In Texas, food and family mend what's broken, and this barbecue was our medicine. Margaret had tried to erase Mom's legacy, but we were rewriting it, plate by plate. That night, as the stars blinked above Austin, I felt whole again. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about love, about rebuilding our home on the foundation Mom left us, unbreakable and true. Margaret's reckoning came in a Houston courtroom, a cold, final chapter to her reign of deceit. She stood before the judge, her charm gone, her eyes hard as she faced charges of attempted poisoning, fraud, and theft. The evidence, security footage, vials, forged documents, her own confession, was a noose she couldn't escape. The prosecution detailed her crimes: $80,000 stolen from Dad, his slow poisoning, her attempt to drug me to seize the trust. She pled guilty, sparing us a trial, but her sentence was severe: 20 years in prison, with further investigations into her past husband's deaths. In Texas, justice is swift for those who prey on trust, and Margaret's fall was a warning to others. I sat in the courtroom, my heart heavy but resolute, watching her led away in cuffs. She'd nearly destroyed us, exploiting our grief for Mom, but we'd fought back. Her sentence closed a door, but it didn't erase the scars. As I left, I thought of Dad's recovery, my advocacy, Nathan's twins, our triumphs over her darkness. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice, a Texas family standing tall against a predator, proving our love was stronger than her lies. Margaret's betrayal was a storm that nearly tore my family apart, but in its wake, we found lessons that will guide us forever. That night at Vincent's, when Olivia whispered her warning, I learned to trust my instincts. As a medical researcher in Austin, I rely on data, but my gut, honed by Texas grit, screamed that something was wrong with Margaret's Merlot. Listening to that quiet voice saved me, saved us. In Texas, we're taught to stand firm, to protect our own, and my instincts were my shield against a predator who'd slipped into our lives. But the deeper lesson was about family strength. Margaret thought she could fracture us, exploiting Dad's grief for Mom, stealing his money, poisoning his body, and targeting me to control our trust. She underestimated the bonds that hold a Texas family together. Dad's recovery through therapy and hard work showed me resilience. Nathan and Abigail's twins, due soon, are a promise of hope. My advocacy for others facing abuse is my way of honoring Mom's love. We didn't just survive Margaret's schemes, we grew stronger, our love forged in the fire of betrayal. This story isn't just about revenge. It's about redemption, about proving that no poison can break a family rooted in trust and courage. In Austin, we don't let darkness win. We rebuild, we heal, and we stand taller. Margaret's 20-year sentence is justice, but our real victory is this. We're still here together under the wide Texas sky. Trust your instincts, they might save you just as mine did. And hold your family close, because their strength, their love, will carry you through any storm, no matter how fierce. In Texas, we wear our pride like a badge, and this story is a testament to what that pride means. Austin raised me to be tough, to question what doesn't add up, and to fight for what's right. Margaret thought she could outsmart a Texas family, but she didn't know the fire in our hearts. From the bat-filled skies of Congress Bridge to the rolling hills of Hill Country, this land teaches us to stand tall, to protect our kin, and to rise above betrayal. Dad's return to his engineering firm, Nathan's joy as a soon-to-be father, my work helping others, they're all proof that Texas spirit can't be broken. Margaret's lies crumbled because we faced them together, with the stubborn resolve of folks who know family is everything. I'm not just telling this story to close a chapter. I'm sharing it to inspire you, to remind you that your instincts, your roots, can guide you through the darkest nights. Here in Austin, we don't just survive, we thrive, building light from pain. I want to hear your stories, your moments of trusting your gut or fighting for family. That's why I'm hosting a live stream next week, right here on this channel. Join me to share how you've faced betrayal, how you've healed, or how Texas pride has carried you through. We'll talk about instinct, resilience, and the strength of community, whether you're in Houston, Dallas, or beyond. Bring your stories, your questions, and let's build something together, just like we do in Texas. Strong, real, unbreakable. This isn't just my story. It's ours, a call to stand up, to listen to that inner voice, and to keep family first, no matter what comes. Let's meet in the live stream and show the world what Texas heart is made of. This journey, exposing Margaret, rebuilding our family, has been a fight, but sharing it with you makes it mean more. In Texas, we don't keep stories like this to ourselves. We pass them on, hoping they help someone else. Have you ever ignored a gut feeling, only to wish you hadn't? Or fought to protect your family against all odds? I want to hear your experiences in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone watching, just like Olivia's courage inspired me. If this tale of instinct, betrayal, and redemption moved you, hit that like button. It helps others find this video. And if you want to join me for more stories of truth and healing, subscribe to the channel. Click the bell so you don't miss the live stream next week, where we'll dive deeper into trusting our instincts and standing strong. In Austin, we build community, and I want you to be part of ours. Share, like, subscribe, let's keep this conversation going. Together, we can prove that no matter how dark the storm, a Texas family's love will always shine through.